Welcome back to another episode of the Twin Elements podcast, proudly presented by Venture Hunting and Outdoors. If you're like us and passionate about hunting, spearfishing, and many other outdoor-related pursuits, with an eagerness to fast-track your learning, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome back, legends, to another episode of the Twin Elements podcast. Now, today's episode is a special one, as a lot of you may know, Ayden and I, we sort of have focused. One of our goals here at Twin Elements is to try and get as many hunters to go and experience new hunts, to try and get as many new hunters to start bow hunting or hunting in general, and really just build this community. So this podcast is sort of dedicated to that, I guess, where for a couple of years now, Ayden and I have been using the Huntin Fool service. And what Huntin Fool is it's a membership-based program in the US, which is designed to try and get more people to draw more tags across the US and, go and experience some of these awesome hunts that Ayden and I have been lucky enough to experience in the last couple of years. So on this episode today, we are joined by Austin Atkinson, who is one of the Huntin Fool Advisors, and he just runs through a couple of questions that Ayden and I have. And really, it's just trying to lower the barrier of entry and sort of familiarize you guys, our listeners, with Huntin Fool to hopefully get you guys over in the US and potentially abroad in the future to experience some truly breathtaking hunts. This one is fairly information dense, so it may even be worth listening to it twice for those people that aren't very familiar with the US based system. But it's also going to make up the first episode of a sort of a mini series that we're going to be doing with Austin, just trying to familiarize you guys with the US hunting system, and we're going to be breaking it down by species. So stay tuned for that as they roll out in the next couple of weeks. We'll also be answering your FAQs as usual. So if you guys have an FAQ or a question, please send that through to info@twinelements.com.au with the subject line FAQ. Equally, you can send us a message on Twin Elements Instagram account or Ayden Doumtsis Outdoors or James Doumtsis Outdoors, and we'll answer that on a future podcast. So without further ado, we'll jump in.
Specializing in high-quality supplements and nutrition, from electrolytes and hydration add-ins to their wild bars, Atlas Wild helps to fuel our outdoor adventures. Their Regenerate lineup has been a game-changer whilst hunting up north in the heat and humidity. It's perfect for those on the quest for hydration when losing lots of sweat. With grape, lemon lime, blue raspberry and orange flavors, there's something for everyone. Another favorite of mine is their Fusion lineup. It's my go-to for rest and recovery towards the end of a day. It's perfect for a big pack out. Now available in peach iced tea and lemon lime flavors. When shopping on the Atlas Wild website, be sure to use code TWIN10. That's TWIN 10 numerically for 10% off your next order.
Today, we've actually got our first non-family member guest on the podcast. Brought in all the way from the US. We've got Austin Atkinson from Huntin Fool, who's kindly given up his time to just help answer a few questions that we've had a lot of listeners and hopefully break down the barrier to getting a few Aussies and New Zealand gents and ladies to the US. So thanks for jumping on the podcast, mate.
Of course.
So for those that don't know, Austin, what is Huntin Fool and how did it all get started?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it was actually started here in southern Utah in late 1995, early 1996. A gentleman by the name of Garth Carter said, man, I need to help these people apply for tags. I want them to hunt more often. And he could kind of see the writing on the wall that hunting was going to get more popular and tags were going to get more limited, which is how everything is managed here in the States. So he was a visionary. And he said, I'm going to start a membership type organization. And it started with a basic newsletter or a little newspaper where he said, I'm going to help my friends and those hunters I know find more hunting opportunities. And that seems pretty common now. I mean, we could post something on social media. We could make a YouTube video. But in 95, you couldn't do that near as easily. So he was ahead of his time, and he started a little newsletter to help people know how to find cool hunts and how to find opportunities. And so that's when it all started here. Humble beginnings. It was a little family business in Cedar City, Utah. And it's evolved quite a bit, but we still keep the same service oriented, help people hunt more. That's really our whole goal.
Yeah, awesome. And when did you jump onto the Hunting Fool team?
So I first heard about Huntin Fool it was about 2008 when I was guiding in Alaska, and a client had said, well, do you hunt other states? And I said, well, I'm building some points, but I'm trying to navigate all the process. I don't know all about it. And they referred me to Huntin Fool, so I joined as a member myself, and that's been about 17 years ago. And then in 2015, I was working as a hunting guide and very involved in the hunting industry, but a job opening came up here in Utah at the Huntin Fool to help with marketing, and they were going through some growth. So 10 years ago, I moved my family to southern Utah and became full-time here in the office at Huntin Fool.
It's amazing from my perspective, obviously, hearing the transition there. Like James and I have sort of moved, not necessarily our families, but ourselves, to go around here in Australia and sort of chase hunting opportunities. James has moved to a place in New South Wales to specifically try and hunt more deer and pigs, red deer in particular. And then after university, I went here in Australia's Northern Territory and moved to go and have we're both veterinarians by trade, by occupation, but wanted to go and do a bit more adventuring in the Northern Territory and just check out some new landscapes. So it's pretty cool to see that translate over in the States, where you've moved your family around for, I guess, at its core, hunting and that passion that you have. So that's really cool. In the first sort of bit of the podcast, you spoke about how it sort of started with a newsletter. How has that sort of evolved, do you think, since 1996, obviously? And like, what impacts do you think social media and just digital marketing has on the industry?
Sure. I mean, in 1996, we didn't have access to the online tools that we have now, right? I was still in elementary school or grade school at the time, and you generally only hunted in your home state. So my dad was a big hunter. My grandfather was a big hunter. They taught me about hunting, but it was really hard to know what you could do out of state unless someone had taught you how to do that. So I was born up in Alaska, and then my parents moved to Arizona, where I was raised. And we hunted in our home state whenever we had the opportunity. But this was the day of paper applications, so there was no online system. There was very few forums or ways to find hunting opportunities. So you kind of relied on what showed up in the mail. I mean, if you think about it, we all relied on the mail service to tell us things, newspapers, flyers, and that's where the Huntin Fool newsletter became the Bible, you will, or the Cliff Notes version of here's what hunting opportunities are out there, and people would just wait at their mailbox for that information to show up, and they would digest it and say, I didn't know about this opportunity. I want to actually go out of state and hunt elk or mule deer or something else. And nowadays it's evolved. Huntin Fool is more of a digital-based tool. Yes, we still have our magazine, a printed magazine that we mail out to many of our subscribers. We also publish it online in digital version. But we're still providing the same level of service, telling you hunting opportunities, showing you how to get the permits and go on these hunts. But it's very online based and not just so much paper. We still print the paper magazine, but it's more just for fun than anything.
And if you had to look at your main client base now, would you say that, like, it's mainly people within the US, or it's international, or, international for you guys, I guess, within Europe, within South Asia and New Zealand, or South Pacific, I should say, like, who is mainly using the Hunting Fool service? Because, like, I think that we're so foreign and so removed from all the hunting licenses and rules and all the rest of it, regulations. So like people that live just across the border, are they using your service, or is it more, people, the rest of us around the globe, I guess?
Yeah, good question. Most of our membership lives here in the United States, but they live in places that either don't have many hunting opportunities, or they're stuck living somewhere for work and they want to travel. So we have a lot of members from Florida or California where there's not much public land, there's not many hunting opportunities, and so they look to go elsewhere. So our membership is based on hunters that can't hunt or don't hunt enough in their home area and they want to go elsewhere for more opportunities. Yeah, we have clients all over the globe, from Mexico to, England, Europe, Italy. We've got clients all over, but the majority of our clients come from the United States, where they understand our complicated system. They understand the need for regulations, rules, licenses, permits. So they're familiar enough to ask the right questions, but they don't know what the next steps are. And so they come to us to find what to do.
I think that's a perfect segue into the next question I was going to ask, and I was going to see if you could please sort of walk us through what a Huntin Fool membership offers, especially from the perspective of someone from in our boots, Australia. Where's the value coming in for us as hunters wanting to come over and hunt in the USA?
Sure. Well, in the U.S., as you guys understand, there's a lot of public land. And anytime that there's public land, the state owns the animal. So the state owns the rights to manage the wildlife. And in order to keep those animals in abundance, they have to manage the level of permits, or those that can go hunting. So a little different than a private land dominated or non-managed species like other countries have. So a lot of times when you have a dream or a goal, you just don't know where to go first. You don't know what the first step is. And that's where, if you have a desire to hunt in the United States, a Huntin Fool membership is going to kickstart that properly. We provide the first steps, if you will. Every day I talk to hunters that have never killed an elk, have never seen an elk, and they just want to see, what do I do first? Oftentimes there's this misconception that you have to have a lot of money, or you have to, pay somebody just to go hunting. And that's not always the case. Yes, hunting is expensive and it does require an investment, but there's a lot of opportunities out there for the normal everyday working guy to come hunting. And so as we become a more global world of hunting, if you will, it's easy to jump on a plane and fly to the U.S. It's easy to come in and to go hunting. The hardest part is getting the permit, getting the right to hunt, and knowing what's the deadline you have to get that by, who do you pay, what do you fill out, do you need certain prerequisites or requirements or certifications, all those little hoops you have to jump through that might not be different than traveling to some countries where you have to apply for a visa, or you have to, jump through some hoops. It's no different for hunting. And so the Huntin Fool membership will show you, guide you through how to hunt. And luckily in the United States, non-residents who live in other countries like you guys, they're treated exactly the same as any other public hunter. There's no other requirements for you coming to hunt than there is for me going to a different state here and hunting. You're allowed to hold that license and hold that hunting permit, which is a great opportunity. You just have to come and do it. So the membership will guide you through what to do first. And if you just show up on a state website, you may be confused. You may be overwhelmed. Go to the Montana website and try to figure out what you're supposed to do. It's nearly impossible if you're not familiar with it. And so our guide, our membership will show you the steps of what you have to do, what the deadlines are, and break it down so you can actually understand what you're doing.
We all know that when it comes to great tasting coffee in the outdoors, you look no further than Dog and Gun Coffee. Their preloaded drip filters are renowned for taking cafe-grade coffee into your hunting camp. but your favorite flavors can also be enjoyed at home with their whole bean variety. Use code TWIN10, that is TWIN, 10 the number, to get $10 off your first order. Yeah, I think even someone that's probably familiar, I guess, but definitely not, I wouldn't even call myself experienced with like just looking up websites to see, if I've drawn a tag and stuff like that, I get completely lost, like so lost within them. And then I think the biggest problem is just even looking up the deadlines for certain species and application dates and that type of thing. Like I end up just using the dashboard on Huntin Fool because it's all just laid out like so nicely by, date and then state and then species. And so like just even having that makes it so much easier to see what money's coming out and whatnot. But it's definitely like going into each state and trying to find those deadlines and what you can actually hunt and unit information, like all that type of stuff. Like it takes someone like hundreds of hours to accomplish what you can accomplish in like 1 or 2 hours of a meeting with like a hunt consultant like yourself from Huntin Fool, because you guys have, this is what you do every day. Like you're paying for that experience. But I think for me personally, like the biggest reason why I still love using Huntin Fool was because I actually lost a couple of years worth of deadline, or like a couple of years worth of points in Utah, because I couldn't, for some reason, I don't know why, but I just could not like load the website to actually like apply, end up losing like a couple of points. And for me, that 3 years just say of points that I lost is worth way more than the Huntin Fool fees that we pay to you guys. But it's also just that experience. Like you can't pay for the knowledge or the amount of hours that it would require me to do a half-assed job to even come close to you guys is worth its weight in gold, really, in the sense of like, yeah, Eric is the normal hunting consultant that I use from Huntin Fool, and I can't emphasize enough how how much he's helped me on going on these hunts, not only from trying to draw the tag, but even with like a hunt plan and stuff like that after you draw the tag, which I think is just like that extra step, in the sense that you guys are so invested in helping people like get that dream or that hunt of a lifetime, which I just can't thank the Huntin Fool team enough for the service, especially like recent hunts that I've had there. Like they've been incredible.
No, that's good. I think it's important to realize that we are a service-based business. We're just a customer service business. We don't have a fancy building. We don't have a fancy storefront. Like we are just a bunch of people here in the office that we're lucky we get to do this full time. There's not many hunting service businesses out there. Yes, there are outfitters. There's some other magazines, but we're truly just a service business. So we answer the phone, we answer the email, and there's no questions off the table. Like we deal with hunters that are very inexperienced, that have never picked up a firearm, never picked up a bow, and they just want to get into it. And we deal with hunters that are very experienced. They've done it their whole lives, but they realize that their time is precious and they want to make the most of their time by going to good areas, by getting the right answer, or they're tired and frustrated of the state websites, the government websites that manage hunting, and they want to come to us for the real shorter answer, if you will. So it's a privilege to be in the hunting service industry. It's just a very small industry, and it's very different to say we do this for our full-time jobs.
What I think is really rewarding from our perspective as someone that doesn't know everything that's going on over there, and we're trying to, I guess we're trying to digest a lot of information that comes to us quite quickly in order to get it out before a deadline, sometimes 5-10 deadlines if you're looking at 5 or 10 different states, multiple different species. And for me, I just can recall a situation where James and I were sort of in a 3-way chat with Eric, so our sort of one-on-one strategy consultant, I guess. And we were sort of bickering in the corner, talking about something about antelope and our strategy as to what we think we should do. And Eric obviously had enough information from us earlier in the conversation as to, I guess, what our mutual sort of goal or theme was towards this trip that we wanted to achieve. And he was kind of just listening, and we probably wasted too much time between James and I. Like, we love to talk and we're very passionate about hunting, and we were talking about oh no, well, I don't know if for time wise we're gonna be able to do that. Maybe we should just focus and put all our eggs in this basket and go for elk and deer and blah blah blah. And Eric goes like quietly, like raises his hand almost and just goes like, lads, if I may, how about this? And sort of proposed this thing that just like succinctly was perfect, catered more to our needs than what we even thought was possible. Was like, this I think would be your best option in terms of opportunity, but also a good unit. But also, if that doesn't work, you're not wasting time and taking away from this and blah. Like, and having that, like, again, knowledge and boots on the ground for like a real world scenario. And I think that's what Hunting Fool offers best, is just a real world approach to other people's problems, and not necessarily problems that we couldn't sit there and sort of filter through ourselves. And because the information is there, it's like we could go and read an encyclopedia if you put it out there as if the internet is an encyclopedia and all the state websites, it's all there. But what Hunting Fool has done is give you this like really nice, succinct little revision. Like, I would take it back to studying at university, where you've got all these chapters and books and topics to go through, and then at the end of the year, before you go to your exams, you're walking in with this one-page, really nicely summarized sort of revision cheat sheet, I guess. And Hunting Fool to me really does feel like a cheat sheet, I guess, in that sense. Um, One thing that James spoke about earlier in terms of trying not to miss deadlines, I think he didn't necessarily specify that he lost those points in Utah when he wasn't using Hunt and Fool. But Eric did run us through like just some of the cool stories about how people, the double checking process that you guys have that pretty much ensures that no one misses their deadlines, which, because I can attest to basically getting emails from some of the ladies in the office being like, hey, you've drawn this, like, congratulations, or just double checking you haven't got, you haven't done your hunter education for this state, like make sure you do it before this date. And it's just things that I would have missed had I not had that, human interaction where someone's taken the time to go, yeah, we've lodged his tag or his application, but he hasn't, done the prerequisites, and having someone sort of account for that is massive, which is obviously very appreciated. Do you mind just talking to that a little bit more?
Yeah. I mean, your time is your most valuable asset, right? And when you guys are busy, a lot of our clients, yes, they want to hunt, but they're raising families, they're traveling, they're working. You just can't dedicate the time necessary to make sure you get everything done. And so our service becomes an affordable secretary, if you will, to all of our hunters. We're there when you need us. You can text us, you can email us, and we're going to make sure you don't miss that critical deadline. Or if your credit card's expired, we get that new one and get it in. Or did you know you drew? I mean, it's a rewarding part of our job. Every week we're busy with some deadline or some draw result, calling people, telling them, you drew a tag, you get to go, let's plan your hunt. And some days we're just signing up new people that are just beginning the process. So every day is different for us. Yes, we stare at the screen in our office. We don't get to go outside as much as we wish we could. But you think about the thousands of clients that we help every year that are in the field, having these memories, killing these animals, sending us pictures. It makes our reach so wide. We have hunters in every state, every year, in every country doing something cool, and we get the pictures. It comes to us and we get excited. So it's rewarding, but yeah, it is a personalized service for sure.
With that, never missing a deadline, I think it screams volumes for me, because I think it was actually Jake, one of the Hunting Fool team members, that explained that it's like you've got your Hunting Fool consultant who you initially go with, but then you've got someone like double checking all of them, and they're like sort of the little mastermind behind. And I think he was saying, like, out of every member that, I can't think of, like, how many thousands of members have you guys got in across the world at the moment?
There's a lot more than you'd probably think. So there's over 100,000 people in our database.
Yeah, wow. So of 100,000 people that they've applied for, at some stage, I think Jake was saying that they'd had one mix up on an application in the history of Hunting Fool, and then they ended up buying that person the tag and the hunt that they were like an equivalent hunt of what they were going for to like make up for it. And I think like when you're dealing with a company with those sort of morals and ethics and like those sort of standards, when you're looking after that many people's applications and how much you like value the service that you guys are providing, I think it just speaks volumes, and obviously shows why we continue to use the service.
Yeah, it's very rewarding. It's very stressful because a lot of these states, we're dealing with people's time. I'm dealing with years, decades worth of time from some clients. And so it is stressful when you go to submit their application to make sure you're spending their money wisely, their time wisely, that's really a hunt that they want. We check each other. I mean, just right now in my office, I can hear people arguing about Colorado. I can hear people picking outfitters for Nevada, and there's always something going on in the office, and we all work here close together. There's about 42 of us on the team, so we're a decent sized small business, and everybody's got their little specialties, and we bounce ideas off each other to make sure we're checking each other. So yes, you can have a personal hunt advisor, but in some instances, we may pass you off to a different advisor that's more experienced in the area you want to hunt, and we'll make sure you get the best answer. It's our goal to provide the truth. Whether, like you said, Ayden, a lot of this information is available. You could figure it out on your own. Go to a bunch of websites, read a whole bunch of news reports, read hundreds of pages of regulations, but there's no fun in that. You don't have time to do that. So let us do it. We'll give you just the parts you need when you ask for them, and then you can move on and with your life.
So speaking to that, Austin, because I think that's what you just said there is really important from my perspective as someone that, again, I consider myself naive and wanting to come across from Australia and hunt. All I know is I want to hunt in the United States. I've seen the YouTube videos of guys like Remy Warren, Steve Ranella, the old Primos, like the truth videos of, big bull elk getting bugled in and stuff. And I guess what's your best advice for someone from Australia, for example? So there's obviously like that distance barrier, and probably a lot of education lacking. But that one of our listeners, for example, are dreaming of their first big game hunt out west. What sort of information makes it easier on your end for you to be able to deliver like the best service? So should it be that they sort of have an idea of potentially not necessarily the units they want to hunt, but I want to hunt, a Rocky Mountain, elk in the Rockies, for example. This is my fitness levels, and just be realistic with a lot of their own factors, I think. Is it then as simple as just getting in touch, or do you think they need to have a more robust hunt plan than that, or maybe even a timeline? Like, what are some of the prerequisites that I think makes it easier from your end to sort of start organizing and putting pieces together?
Sure. Yeah, we can definitely jumpstart the process if you have an idea of the species you want to hunt, your budget, meaning your overall out-of-pocket budget, travel, everything included, and just the experience you want. And that could be based on your physical, abilities, or that could be based on just your desire. Do you want to see horses and go horseback? Do you want to be in the wilderness away from people? The sky's the limit, and that's what is great. We have so much land that you can hunt, and the tag and the state you want to hunt is not near as important on these initial conversations as just your goal. Tell me your dream. I dealt with a hunter just the other day that he did not care what he hunted. He just wanted to be in the big, tall mountains. He wanted to see pine trees. He wanted to be at high elevation, and he wanted to be there when the weather was nice. Well, we can take that and narrow it down to maybe a early season mule deer hunt that would fit the bill. And then you talk to other hunters that are like, hey, I just want to drive around in a rental truck and see a whole bunch of game and stay in a motel in the evenings. Perfect. There's antelope hunts that are for you, and let's find one. So kind of your experience, yes, your species, because everybody's got a list of what they want to chase, which weapon you want to go with, your budget. That's enough. And then we'll scour all of our data, all of our opportunities across all the United States, and pinpoint where would be fine for you to go. We're not going to ask you so much where you want to fly into, because you guys could fly into anywhere, right? We'll just get you here and we'll get you close. But when I consult people that live in a certain state, I look at what's close for them to drive to. Are they going to fly, or can they just drive their truck over? So we'll look at all of that, but there's no cookie cutter answer for the same, for two hunters. There really isn't. So I don't have just an elk strategy that here you go, here's the turnkey elk plan, because it's different for each person. And that's why it takes us asking those initial questions, and then we'll build a hunt plan for you and tell you what to do next.
Numa Outdoors is our camouflage clothing of choice. The team has formulated a durable, breathable, quiet and comfortable camouflage lineup, suitable for all terrains, season and pursuits, with a great pattern to keep you concealed. You may have recently seen us running the Renegade lineup in our recent adventures up north. We're pleased to announce that Numa products are available in Australia, so head to Venture Hunting Outdoors website to check them out for yourself. Yeah, I remember my first hunt plan with Eric. It was almost like, I don't want to say daunting, but it was almost like the glasses just being removed from your eyes, and like now you can see everything, because you sort of don't realize what's available to you. You know what I mean? And sort of like what Ayden was saying before, with like, you guys have all the data and you've constructed so many of these different hunt plans for different hunters wanting like specific little details and little nuances and whatnot, that, like you sit down and you're working it out, and you're like, oh, this species in this state and da-da-da, and like you're starting to construct this matrix of like your future hunt plans and, what you want to get. And like you said, it's completely different for everyone, but it was almost, once again, I don't really want to say daunting, but it was exciting to see all the possibilities, because you don't even realize half the stuff that you're missing out on. Like and then you start speaking about new states and new species, and, like for you, I wouldn't hunt here, but I definitely hunt there. And I'm like, oh shit, I didn't even, didn't know you could hunt that there and stuff like that. And so, I think, just the information that you can get from one of these meetings, is extraordinary, and it gets you excited for then, like, you're sort of sitting there waiting for these deadlines, and you're like, oh, what am I going to get? And, it's almost addictive in a way.
Yeah. It's probably foreign, to you guys and to a lot of hunters to think that we base everything off of a lottery draw system, which is basically what most of these states come down to. They may be very easy to win the lottery and to draw the license that you need, or maybe very difficult, next to impossible, to draw a certain license. But where our demand far exceeds our supply, and for all of these species across all of the states, that's the best process that we've come up with, is a lottery draw. The problem is every state is so different. No two states are the same. They're all managed independently. And so you have to navigate through the hoops of each state's drawing, and we can definitely overwhelm our clients if we just speak to every opportunity and every nuance. Some guys throw their hands up and say, it seems like too much. Well, we'll try to keep it simple, break it down, tell you what to do next, because we all have a finite number of resources. Most of us aren't billionaires, and we can't just hunt everything anywhere we want. So.
For sure. And I guess that's where, our listeners now have obviously heard about some of our interactions with the Huntin Fool team, what you guys, offer, and how essentially it just makes our life easier as non-resident hunters looking to go over. Because as you said, like, travel and the logistics of organising these hunts are sometimes a big enough ordeal. And then trying to organise a hunt on top of that, and what tags to even go for and things like that, can be just too big of a barrier for some people to say, like, nah, I'm just not going to do it. So I certainly was in that boat. I just wanted to see if you could please just speak to, I guess, how some of the pricing is structured for Huntin Fool, and potentially what people can expect, and maybe break down, because I know some of our listeners might not understand that there are actual state fees for tags that go back into, conservation and the management of these animals. But maybe just, speak to how they're two different fees, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we're a service-based business, so we have our services that we provide for very affordable fees, and it's a la carte. It's pay as you go. So the more services you use of ours in the application service, the more you pay for those services. But from the states, generally you need some sort of qualifying or preliminary license that you must purchase that'll make you eligible to apply in that state's lottery draw. And so those fees are non-refundable, and they go towards conservation in that state, in that state entity, usually called a fish and game or a wildlife resources department that's charged with managing that. Then there'll be some sort of application fee on top of that that allows you to buy that chance in their drawing or in their lottery. Every state's different what they call that. Some states you earn points, some states you don't. But just think of it as these are my non-refundable fees to have my name considered, if you will, in the draw. When we apply, our clients act as your secretary on your behalf. We use your credit card information to apply you in that state. So you get the rewards points depending on the credit card you use. Any refunds that are necessary come back to your credit card. We simply act on your behalf. So it's not a huge investment to start applying in some of these states, but it can get expensive if you add all the states and all the species, which I never recommend for anybody. Don't add it all. Just only add the ones that make sense, that are the species you want, the chance where the odds look good enough that it's worth the investment. I mean, some of them are very daunting, very impossible type draws, once in a lifetime opportunities. If you can afford it, yeah, let's play the game. But if you have a limited budget on how much you want to spend, we have clients that spend, say, $500 a year. They say, I want to spend $500 US in applying in draws for elk and deer. Great. We can make a strategy out of that. We have some clients that want to spend $2,000 or $3,000 a year in non-refundable fees to not even hunt. These are just fees to play in the game, in the lottery application game. And if that fits in your budget, great. We'll make a strategy there. But I don't want to see people just applying only and never going hunting. You should set aside the majority of your budget to plan a trip and to actually come over and go hunting. And then a portion of your budget will plan for those non-refundable fees, service fees to apply in the States.
So how does the Hunting Fool fees work as well then on top of obviously the state fees? So you got the state fees and then the individual species fees when you apply for those within a state, and then there's your fees on top of that for Hunting Fool. Is that correct?
Yeah, when we apply you in that state, we charge $55 for the state application and then $10 for each species application that you select in that state. So if you apply in a state that's got, 4 species, you'll be $55 for the state plus $40 for the 4 species. You'd be $95. That's the annual charge for us to apply you in that state.
How important is it? Because I can hear people in Australia saying, might not necessarily have the funds right now to fly over and spend $4,000 or $5,000 in flights to get over to the US. I do really want to go over and hunt, like it's a dream of mine, but it's not relevant to me because I don't have the money to put up for it. And that's where, like, for me, I guess I know the answer. Like, for as little as $500 US, I say as little, but that is a lot of money for anyone, especially if they got, a family and other commitments, paying a mortgage and whatnot. But I guess it's just what James and I realize is that if we're not playing the game, I guess, and trying to build up points and be eligible, like, you need to almost have a bit of a plan as to this is something I want to achieve and just start those conversations now. Are there options for people to, I guess, be chipping away and say, in 2030, I want to come over and do a pretty low entry, for example, Montana general unit hunt for an elk, which isn't particularly crazy to draw in a lot of aspects, but I want to just start building a few points that I'm, really likely to draw it when I'm actually ready to start hunting. Or that might be a bad example, for example, but Wyoming or some of these states where you sort of can start doing that, I guess. Are you able to just speak to that and maybe give, I guess, yeah, again, our listeners a bit of a like what I really appreciate and what I guess I'm trying to say is like Eric puts himself in our shoes as a lot of the time when we talk to him as that one-on-one hunting consultant. He goes, I think I understand what you're trying to say, but look, from my perspective, this is what I would sort of do if it was me, or this is based on what you've told me and your current situation. I'm trying to sum up opportunity versus cost versus time. I don't necessarily know if that's where you should pool your resources. Have you thought about this? And I think the biggest thing I'm trying to allude to here is just starting the conversation with someone like yourself, Austin, and just having a bit of might not necessarily know what the exact plan is, but if you say, I want to hunt elk in 5 years' time, just starting that conversation now so that you can start building points and applying and stacking resources for, if it is $500 is your budget, can actually put you in a really good position in 5 years' time rather than starting from scratch when you have the funds to go and fly over. Like you might then go, oh, cool, I've got $5,000 to spend on flights, but I've got 0 points. Do you mind talking to that a little bit?
Yeah, it's definitely different because if you're someone who wants to go, say, to Russia or to Africa and go hunting, it's simply a pay and you go. So when you have the money, you can book the hunt and you can show up and you can pay to go hunting. But to what you're saying, it's very different here in the States, where if you say, I want to hunt elk in the next 10 to 15 years, you should probably start now building some points, paying those non-refundable fees to earn yourself the right to go in 10 to 15 years. And in some states that may only take 2 or 3 years, like Montana that you spoke of. But 2 or 3 years beforehand, we should start planning. And in some of these states, no amount of money is going to make it so you can just go that same year, right? Most big game hunts in the US run August through December. That's kind of our fall hunting season. And people get excited about it every year, but you need to be looking 2 or 3 years ahead of time and say, what am I going to do? For example, I recently did a moose hunt in Alaska. It was about 3 years of planning and saving, but mostly planning to figure out when am I going to go? How is it going to fit with my schedule? And will my wife let me go? So it takes a little bit of time to get ready for that. Same thing for, say, hunting elk in Wyoming. You can go in 4 or 5 years, but if you wait and decide not to call Huntin Fool until 5 years from now and then say, I want to go this year, we're going to say, no, you can't. You need to play in the point game for a couple of years to keep the opportunity open. Like you said, it's minimal to apply and to build those points, but there's no way to turn back the clock. We're dealing more with time than anything on these states. And if you don't play the years necessary to get the permit you want, you might not be able to do it.
And that's what I think I not only regret not pushing Ayden earlier to get the ball rolling and start the conversation, but like to the people listening to this podcast, like if I can encourage you to do anything, it would literally just be reach out to Huntin Fool and just start the conversation. Like you mean, like having that initial hunt consultation. It's like, that's just, you're just finding out what opportunities are out there and what you're missing. You know what I mean? Like there's no obligations to then go and apply in 10 states like what I do. You know what I mean? Like you don't even, but I think what it will do is it's going to open your eyes to what, the end, like what you have to do to actually get tags and opportunities in the US, because you've summed it up perfectly. Like you can't pay for the time that it's required to apply for a lot of these things. Like there is some tags that you can just buy over the counter, but they're few and far between, and also becoming more expensive. But I, like I said, I regret in a lot of ways not getting Ayden in there early, because he only started applying this year really. And, like I was like, oh shit, like I should have been applying for that for 3 years and that for 3 years. And I would have had a couple of points there. And, and it's one of these things that it's cost nothing to start the conversation. And if you really just want to hunt one of these species, whether it be, moose antelope, whitetail, anything, like it's worth starting now. So just reach out, send that email, have a meeting, and then see where it goes from there, because you can't buy back that time, sadly, because I would have probably started 15 years ago.
Being so passionate about food and cooking, we have teamed up with Camp Chef. With portable cookware for wherever your travels take you, Camp Chef provides a better way to cook food. Whether in the backyard or the backcountry, shop pellet grills, their cast iron range, or portable cooking systems today. We personally love their large 12-inch diameter skillets and camp ovens for cooking over the coals.
We have spoken a lot about the USA, and obviously more probably looked into, because that's just where James and I are quite interested in, the Western big game hunts. Which other countries do you operate in? I know do you mind even potentially speaking a little bit to the outfitter services or relationship that you have as well? Just because we might have people out there saying, yeah, timing is an issue for me, but money isn't. Some of our listeners might say, I actually do have, $10,000 US sort of sitting there that I can use. And it's not necessarily, I've worked for 5-10 years to accumulate that wealth. I don't want to wait another 10 years to draw a tag. I want to actually go and buy a tag or buy an experience in a certain place. Can you please speak to that and just some of those options? Because it's not always tag applications, I guess. I know in the US it is, but in other countries.
Sure. Yeah. Over the years, it was about 5 years after Huntin Fool got started, early 2000s, that we started an endorsed outfitter program. Because there's outfitters all over the U.S. and all over the world that they're some of the best at what they do. They offer guided, outfitted type hunts for quality animals, or they've figured out the logistics, or they have the private land, whatever it may be. But if you want to bypass the draw, the lottery systems, and just buy a permit or buy a hunting trip, there's not as many opportunities in the U.S. as there are in other countries, but there are some, and you can do that. And we offer those services through our Huntin Fool Adventures division, we call it, where you can shop for available hunts, and you'll see little flags on the hunts that say, this is available now. No draw, no license required in the lottery, just buy it and go. And so that's expanded our offerings, where now we have a full service team of full-time advisors that help people find hunts. And we book quite a few hunts in Asia, from Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, down into Africa, from the Big Five down to South Africa, plains game hunts. We've expanded into Canada. We sell a lot of Canadian and Mexico type hunts. Some of our team just got back from Argentina. They went down there and did some hunts for red deer and some exotics. So the sky's the limit. We have about, I would say 90% of the huntable species in the world are available through our Huntin Fool Adventures program. And it still is a decent value for what it costs to go to the United States and hunt a big bull elk, for example. You can go to Africa and shoot about 10 animals for the same price. So it's not that it's always more expensive in other countries, but it just depends on what you're looking for. The North America big game is kind of put up on a pedestal. The demand is very high. Everybody wants to hunt them. But there are a wealth of opportunities across the globe if you're willing to travel, where you can hunt just about anything.
And I think that's another fantastic resource that you guys have. Like you were talking before, even with the hunt consultants, like I actually was looking into hunting the unlimited bighorn sheep stuff, and Eric's like, I've never done that before, but there's we've got a consultant that's done that hunt heaps of times. So, boom, go and talk to them, and then I was like, I just mentioned to Eric, Eric, look, I've always wanted to hunt an ibex, you guys have been so helpful. Do you guys have consultants that do, that could help me book an ibex hunt? And end up having a 3-hour conversation with, I think his name is Matt, but he he does like all the Asia division, so that, and just same thing, like he's like, oh, and I might get this wrong here, but he's like, oh, this is great for opportunity, but not the biggest trophies. And then he's like, oh, but actually you can't bow hunt there. And I think it was like Tajikistan or Kazakhstan, I can't remember which one, but like, and then he's like, okay, well, this really good opportunities, not because I said I don't want to shoot a huge one, like with the bow, obviously I just want to like get as many opportunities under my bow as I can. Where he's like, oh, here it's like the biggest in the world. It's also going to be the most expensive. Probably not going to have that many opportunities more for like a rifle hunt. Not to say you couldn't get it done with a bow, So just having that like experience and like, he's obviously like not only talking about specific species, but also like all these different outfitters in all these different countries. And then, I was talking to someone about Russia and moose and someone about Africa and like, like it's just the network and service that you guys have and the reach that you guys can offer and provide. It's just like, it makes it so much easier for just everyday people that like, yeah, I'm really passionate about hunting, but I just don't have the knowledge and resource available. Well, I do have it available. It's just like the amount of time that it would take me to even do get a tenth of the knowledge, that you guys can provide. It's just not worth it to me, like, and that's why it's just been so good, like, working with you guys, because you can just refer in-house back and forth, and like you've got every base covered on every hunt that pretty much anyone would want to ever do. So it's really awesome.
And when demand goes up, that's when you always see, we call them bad actors or outfitters that are not doing their best, not being fair. There may be something a little shady going on or not honest. And so our endorsed outfitter program, we only deal with the best. So we stand behind any hunt that we send our clients on. We know we handle the bookings for a lot of these hunts. So your money's safe with us. It passes through our booking division and we secure the hunts for you. So you're not just wiring money all over the globe, hoping for the best. You book with our guys and it's vetted, and we stand behind it.
I think that's massive, just in the sense of having not an assurance because it's all online, I guess, but and different parts of the world and whatnot. But as you said, having it vetted is really important. We can speak to that a little bit. For example, we've been on hunts here in Australia for Asiatic water buffalo with a company or an outfitter called Big Country Safaris, who I know that is an outfitter now for Huntin Fool. And it's really cool to see that, I guess, one, Alex from Big Country Safaris has worked really hard and created an operation that, again, is all above board, has some amazing access, has some amazing animals, does an amazing experience for hunters. And what's really cool is to see that now is an opportunity for potentially hunters from the US that are members of Huntin Fool that can now come over to Australia and do a hunt. It's almost the inverse of what we're talking about, where they can go, oh, I've always wanted to go and hunt a water buffalo. What are the steps? And then they can talk to, a Huntin Fool consultant or someone from the Huntin Fool Adventures, tab, and speak and go, well, hey, this is actually an opportunity. And it's just connecting people that are keen enough for one with people that have the opportunity to then, do these hunts in the other sense. So that's pretty cool to be able to see that work, both ways, obviously, for us here in Australia. I just wanted to ask another question, sort of looping back around a little bit to the magazine and some of the other features of, your services at Huntin Fool. I know that it's obviously gone quite a lot from like the physical magazine. There's now the digital copy, but there are also a lot of like tools for, I guess, once we start getting more involved in this whole process. And again, I've been pretty naive, James has been pretty naive, and James does know more, but just talking about if you do want to start, I guess, coming to the party and talking more with your consultant and just saying, oh, I actually looked into this unit and saw its draw odds, or what about this unit? I've seen this data and the success rates and blah, blah, blah. And can you just speak a little bit, please, to, some of the resources that are out there as part of Huntin Fool, and maybe not necessarily the magazine, but your services that we can often go and harness once we've sort of started getting a bit more of an idea?
Yeah, our full-time, hunt advisors that work here, we keep them busy year round. So whether they're researching And researching can mean we're diving through hundreds of pages of statistical data, harvest reports, big game surveys, anything we can get our hands on, weather pattern reports. And we look at everything to digest it and turn it into a subjective opinion that's written by our hunt advisors. So our flagship is our magazine, where we put all of our data and all our hard time and efforts. We put it in there, our findings, if you will. But we're researchers, so we provide on our website draw odds planning so you can see what the odds were last year, so you can find units that are available. We provide all the state information, breakdowns, how it works, how old you have to be to hunt in certain states, do you need hunter education or not. All of that information is provided. And then we turn our magazine into a digital version, which everybody can access as soon as it's available each month, 12 times a year. And one of the most underutilized portions of our research is every article and story that's written by either a hunt advisor or by our subscribers, by our members, is also put on our website. And so you can go through and say, I'm considering maybe a Wyoming elk hunt. And you could read the past 10, 15, or 50 stories on Wyoming elk, read through these stories that are written by like-minded members that maybe had the same experience. And then you could decide, is that the experience I want? Or that doesn't sound very fun? Or that's exactly what I wanted. And you could dive into there and find little nuggets of information. So you don't just have to listen to the hunt advisor team. I mean, we know we're the best at what we do, but we're humble about it. Our members are the ones that are in the field, and you can read their stories and check us, if you will, and see if what we told you was right, see their pictures. And we're creating a community, right? We've been doing it for years, but we're creating a pretty tight-knit community of hunters that enjoy coming to hunt Western big game. And all these resources are available on our website.
I think the service that you guys provide, and especially I think even like I said before earlier, having the deadlines all in one spot for me has helped so much, and just got me, to be honest, excited about things. Like I even like getting, it's like the only spam email I like getting, because this draw is coming out and this this deadline's coming up and such like that. I'm like, sick, and then you go online, you check it, and I mean, like 9 times out of 10 your heart sinks. But it's cool, just it's cool, being a part of that community and being connected. And like I read the magazine and like checking in on I actually watch a lot of the Huntin Fool Advisor YouTube channel as well. Like I really enjoy seeing like what hunts are on offer, and like a lot of your teams, like obviously you guys are diehard hunters. That's how you've gotten into this position. I mean, we didn't really jump into your past and history, but you're obviously a guide and have been hunting your whole life and stuff like that. And the wealth of knowledge from all of the team that are obviously diehard hunters that put you in this very unique situation to be able to help very naive people like ourselves in giving us our best opportunity to go and hunt anywhere in the US or the world. It's a really unique it's a really unique service that you guys provide, and I think you do like such an incredible job. I don't know, it's sort of hard to emphasize how from even the girls, I say the girls in the back, but the girls that like send the emails and stuff with, like, even yesterday I got an email saying how my credit card for some reason hadn't worked for Washington, and if this was firstly, if it was up to me, I probably would have missed the deadline. Secondly, like even little things like that, and it was just because the credit card had expired. Like you said, like a perfect example. Well, there you go. I would have just lost 6 points for elk. I think it was moose and sheep in Washington, just like that. You know what I mean? But just having that checking process, and even just like me and Ayden are trying to book our flights for the US for this year, and I just sent a quick email back being like, hey, when do the antelope results come out from Montana, because we're trying to book flights, and obviously knowing that the season's a bit earlier, and straight away you get an email back being like, yep, these are when it's the draw result that's come out and blah blah blah. It's just the service from everyone within Huntin Fool is just it's second to none. Like it's been an incredible experience. It's one of these things that you are paying for the service, and I think it's like you know, it's definitely worth the investment. And that's coming from, like, interestingly enough, I probably spend, I'm probably in that $3,000 to $5,000 a year applications, which is probably more than like a lot of people. Just because I try and yeah, it was one of these things where Eric's at the start said, and now I'm probably locked in, but Eric said, hey, like, it will take it, it could take you 30 to 40 years to get a sheep tag or a moose tag or whatever in this state. And I'm like, well, I'm already applying there for something else or whatever. So, like, there's a lot of states that I'm just applying for sheep and moose in. Yeah, hopefully one day I draw, but it's all part of the process, and something that once you sort of go down that rabbit hole, it's cool to see where it takes you, really.
For sure. There's a lot of verbiage and terms and words that we use that we're used to because we grew up in this, navigating point systems and everything else. But if you're new, you may not understand what those mean. So what we try to break them down and provide those tutorials for you. We're trying to do more on social media, more on our YouTube, just to help pass the information along. I mean, like we said, there's not many secrets in the hunting world, but most people get into hunting or find hunting opportunities because their hunting buddy or a friend may have told them about something. Well, that person's not a full-time hunt advisor. They may not keep up with the information or know what's relevant or happening these days, but you can always come to us because we're on the forefront of it. And because we're fortunate enough to have it as our full-time job, we're going to stay up on it and give you the true answer. So I see people all the time that have applied for years and years just hoping for a hunt, and then they finally get it and don't even realize that that hunt's horrible now, or it's changed, or there's a new restriction. And they're like, well, that's not what it was 10 years ago. Well, things are changing so fast. Since COVID of 2020, we've seen a huge surge in new hunters. Some of them have stuck around, some of them have not. But there's a huge increase of people wanting to, take up this sport, whether it's for harvesting meat or just time to get outside. Demand is at an all-time high, and we don't see it decreasing anytime soon.
Option Archery makes specialist hunting gear. I'll never not be able to use Equivalizer again. They're truly one of my favourite bits of kit. It combines a stabilizer and equivalizer to increase the functionality of my hunting strategy. It enables me to put my bow on my shoulders, which enables me to glass more when I'm out in the field. Shop both equivalizers and their option sight range today by heading to the website.
With that current trend that you sort of spoke to about demand being at an all-time high and new, I guess, hunters and potentially, our listeners, non-residents coming over and, I guess, flooding the market and putting further demand on a limited resource, where do you see, I guess, applications changing? Like, are you seeing people doing, say someone's, applied in a certain state for 10 years, 15 years, starting to amass quite a lot of points, and they might need to get to 20, 25 to sort of stand a chance on this real prestigious sort of hunt. Are you seeing a bit of a shift where they're going, look, I might just start using my points when it gets to 10 just to have more opportunity? Like, it does that make sense? Sorry, I'm not sure if it does. Like, are you seeing people go, oh, I actually just want to hunt more regularly, maybe not in the best units for the best animals, but have the opportunity at potentially just hunting more, especially if it is new hunters trying to experience it?
Yeah, everybody's at a little different stage of hunting in their life, whether they're in just the limiting out stage and they want to just kill and fill every tag, or they're in the stage where they want to help youth hunters and, introduce people to hunting. Everybody's at a different place. But overall, I would say more people want to go than they used to, as time just seems to fly by these days and people want more opportunities. So yes, when Huntin Fool began, people wanted to just wait for the very best hunts. If I'm going to the States and I'm going to hunt, I want it to be worth my time. But now we see a lot of people, it's like, why don't we just come up with a 5-year plan or 3-year plan of how to get you here and get you on a hunt? There's no point in waiting 20 years to elk hunt. I would rather you go elk hunting 5 times in 20 years and have that experience. Now, everybody's not the same. I realize that, but I've noticed it in myself. Like, I have nearly 30 years of points. That's kind of sick to say, but I have 30 points, like for Arizona, to draw a sheep permit to hunt a bighorn sheep. There's nothing special about a bighorn sheep. It's got 4 legs and horns, but the limited opportunity says everybody wants to hunt them. So I'm waiting 30 years to hunt a sheep. Is that the right approach? Well, I can't afford one any other way. So what have I done in the meantime? I found every other chance I could find to hunt sheep. So I've done ewe sheep or female sheep hunts. I've gone with other people on sheep hunts. Like, there's other things just because I want to get out in the field. I don't just want to sit around and wait. So yes, I would say most people want more opportunity and frequency to come and hunt, and we're welcome to it. We get accused sometimes of telling everybody about these opportunities. There's no more secrets. Well, that's what you're supposed to do, right? We're good humans. We find the opportunity. We want you to come. We want you to spend your money in the state. We want you to help fund conservation, because more hunters will equal more dollars, so we can fight anti-hunting and we can hopefully grow more animals. The worst thing to say is we need less hunters, or we need to be secret or quiet about hunting, because hunting will not survive if we do that. It just won't. Not in the United States. There's way too much negativity towards it. We need more hunters, even though it's hard to get a permit sometimes.
I can understand their viewpoint when people say, especially if it's someone that has sat down and researched all the state rules, legislation, everything like that, all the information out there, have potentially, even in the early days before Huntin Fool was digital, gone and potentially spoke to advisors. I can like, because again, I try and understand where everyone's coming from. I just think it's very self-serving, being like, I've done the hard work, so no one else, if they find another method to, it's almost like, nah, you've got to be down in the trenches and suffer like I did to reap the rewards. Whereas, by Hunting Fool being able to, one, give a lot of education to literally thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, as you've said, it just raises the bar for people being able to go out and do it, which I think is, I can agree with, and sort of definitely see why we value the Hunting Fool service. Is a lot like why we do this podcast, for example, is just to try and bring people along, and not necessarily, some people are never going to want to do the adventures that we want to do, but I think at least give them the insight and education potentially as to make it achievable, because I remember getting messages about, for example, how to call in red deer, and people saying, why are you telling everyone this? You're just going to educate all the deer and this and this and this, and it's like, yeah, that might happen, but most likely it's just going to end up in a whole heap of people shooting their first red deer and being absolutely stoked, taking meat home for their family, enjoying an experience, hopefully then taking out another person, teaching another person, and hunting just keeps turning, and that wheel of that we're all trying to achieve, where, there's more hunters out there doing it as respectfully and, ethically as possible, is what we're doing. So yeah, it's one of those things. I can definitely see why someone who's put in a lot of effort might say that, but when you look at the greater picture, what you guys are doing and offering is really, really integral, I think, to, one, just like reducing barriers of entry for us here in Australia, at least. But you can see from what you've said, a lot of people in the US are using it just to hunt the state next door because they might not know enough about it. So there's so many different, attributes of what you offer.
It's a dual-edged sword for sure. And I think if we're going to preserve hunting, we must tell people about it. We're in a fight in the United States right now of public lands, right? What do we do with all these public lands that we have? A state like Utah, where I live, 75% of our state is public land where anybody can go and recreate, hike, hunt, have a campfire, whatever you'd like to do. It's very strange in the modern world to have that much public land accessible, and we want to preserve that. We believe it's what gives us this great opportunity to hunt, and if we don't have people coming and supporting and sustaining financially, we will lose that, and the states will sell the land to a private landowner, which I'm not against private land ownership. I want opportunities for me and my kids. And a lot of that's why I got into guiding. I didn't start guiding hunters because I was better than anyone or because I wanted to make a lot of money. I started guiding hunters because I take pride in taking a newer hunter or having someone fulfill their dreams or take a first time animal. Like that is way more rewarding than shooting something for myself. I got to take my two oldest kids last year on their first big game hunts, and that's not easy, living in the States because it's hard to get permits. You can't start hunting when they're real little. There's just nothing legally you can do for big game. So that was very special for me to get to take them into the field and watch them harvest their first animal and cut it up and pack it out and tell their friends at school. And, because they're not going to grow up in a world where there's many hunters around. Um, you're here. Most people are not hunters. And so I think it takes good spokesmen and good experiences to shade, a good light on hunting. And if we don't do that, we will lose it.
What was the species in the state where you took your boy, or your oldest, doesn't have to be boys, but hunting?
Yeah. So my oldest is a girl, and so she's 12 years old.
Yeah, cool.
And I took her to Colorado on a second choice unit, nothing special. Second choice means it was very easy to get the license, very easy to obtain that permit. And she turned 12 in October. And a few days later, we were in Colorado on her rifle elk hunt. And we were just out there to have a good time. Like I wanted her to have the experience of a white wall canvas tent and a big campfire and a stove and eating good food. And if we found an elk, great. And we ended up finding a really nice bull elk, and she made a great shot. And you're watching a 12-year-old girl saying, is she going to like this? Is she going to be sad? I honestly had no idea walking into it. She had never killed anything before, no rabbits, no small game, nothing. And so she killed this big elk, and she was so excited. And we went down there and took care of it and packed it out and just made the whole thing a sweet experience. And then, of course, she wanted to, make sure the antlers were sticking out of the back of the truck and we could drive by every other hunter around so they would know that she killed the elk. So it turned into a great experience. And I don't know if she's hooked on it yet or addicted yet, but it was a good experience. And so we're going to keep trying.
It sounds like she's flaunting some traits of hunters that have been doing it for 10 to 20 years. So she's already sort of got that sass, which is pretty cool. But no, that's awesome to hear that you're getting the kids involved. What, I guess, species have you got on the bucket list? You did mention the bighorn earlier in Arizona, I believe it was. If you could only hunt one species for the rest of your life, what would it be? Does it differ?
Man, that's a hard one. I'm kind of a adventurous hunter. I don't need to hunt the same thing every year. I like to jump around and hunt new areas, even if it's for the same species. I want to hunt new scenery and just travel. So I have that travel bug in me. But if I had to pick one species to hunt, it would probably be sheep. I really like North America wild sheep. I've taken two myself, Rocky Mountain Bighorn in Idaho and a Dall sheep in Alaska. I have those two under my belt. I've guided over 30 sheep hunters in Alaska for Dall sheep. So I've hunted those every year for the last 15 years with clients, of course, where I'm not pulling the trigger, but I've got to have the experience. And so, yeah, someday I hope to obtain a desert bighorn permit for myself for a ram. That would be a goal of mine, but looking at the numbers, that may never happen. There's no guarantee. Even living here in the States, never missing a deadline, there's still no guarantee because sheep permits are so limited in number. So I hope to, but I love hunting sheep. And it's mainly, there's nothing special about the animal. Yeah, they're kind of cool. They have big horns, but it's more the country that they're in, where it takes you to go to hunt these sheep is what's amazing and drives me to go back and chase them with a friend, family member. Sometimes I'll just go look at them and take pictures on a weekend. I like sheep.
Know where you stand with Onyx, the most accurate GPS mapping tech for outdoor enthusiasts, featuring land ownership maps that works offline, trusted by millions of hunters worldwide. We utilize Onyx while hunting in the United States on James's elk hunt of a lifetime. Being able to plan and prepare for our hunts allowed us to go farther and hunt with confidence.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you what tags have you got for this fall already, or hunts lined up so far for the year?
Yeah, so this year I head to Alaska in August, pretty soon, and go up there for Doll sheep. So I'll guide a Doll sheep hunter. That's a 10-day backpack hunt. And then right from there, I go to grizzly bear hunting in Alaska. I take 3 hunters every year and guide them on grizzly bear hunts. I love hunting bears. They're very neat critters. And so we'll hunt grizzly bear. And then in September, I did draw a lucky random tag in Arizona. So I have an early season archery elk tag in Arizona. So I'll do that in September. The moisture, has been pretty good this spring and summer. So hopefully that'll be a good tag. And then in October, my daughter has some deer tags again, some elk tags, just general season type stuff. So October, I'll try to dedicate to the kids. I've got a 10-year-old boy with a deer tag as well in New Mexico. And then November, my wife has an elk tag in Arizona, a rifle tag. I'll go to Iowa and hunt whitetail deer, archery, just a bunch of little hunts. You notice most of those are not in Utah because it's hard to get a permit in Utah. So you just have to find these other opportunities. I mean, you can go, a youth elk tag in Colorado is $125 US. Like, it's pretty cheap overall for a youth to go hunt there for elk. A lot cheaper than an adult. So it's like, why not go out of state with our kids and take them? But I try to spend more time now focusing on my kids and wanting them to hunt now they're getting older. I've got more kids that are younger, too young to hunt, that are watching their older brother and sister, and I want them to have a good experience as well.
Do you ever use the over-the-counter elk tag in Utah?
Yes, I do, but that's because I live here, partially, because every year it's cheap as a resident, but I think it's a very underutilized opportunity. Every year I buy a tag. I bought my wife a tag last year. She ended up shooting a nice 5x3 bull elk, her first bull elk, but that was just on an over-the-counter muzzleloader tag. And then I had an archery tag. I missed some shots, sadly, had some elk with my bow and did not connect. But when it's an over-the-counter, you just purchase it. You don't feel bad if you get one or not. So that was a good opportunity there. But yeah, there's so much public land to hunt on. I don't miss a year in Utah on that general season.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's it's something I personally have never hunted Utah or really even looked into it that much. Like, I think just because of the public land, like having so much of it, is just like, and from what I've heard, and this may be poor info on my end, but it's very, very hard on that public land to find the elk and get it done. I'm sure there is the little hot spots and secret valleys that you as a local are familiar with, but it's something that I personally haven't tackled yet. Not to say that in the future definitely could be on the cards, because I think the fact that it's just one of the few, or I don't know if it's the last, I'm not sure what Colorado's been up to, but whether it's the last over the counter opportunity left, but it's certainly an opportunity, and I think people need to jump on them with, like, highlighting, if this podcast hasn't highlighted how hard it is to get a tag nowadays, you certainly need to take every opportunity you can get.
For sure.
Well, I think that's a pretty good overview of everything that Huntin Fool has to offer. Thank you for giving us your time and really just sort of deep diving and illustrating the absolutely fantastic service that Huntin Fool provides to its clients and customers, and just the resource of knowledge and the worth, I guess, of what you guys offer at Huntin Fool. I know, speaking personally again, like, I tell everyone I can about it. And that's sort of why we were so keen to get you guys or someone from Huntin Fool on the podcast, because one of Ayden and my goal is just to get more sort of Kiwi and Australian hunters over to the US and experience some of the beautiful sights and experiences that we've had over there. But I think Huntin Fool definitely is a key component of just breaking down that barrier and getting people over to the US, because you certainly, you pull the smoke away from our eyes and show us what opportunities are available for a very, very good price. And the whole team is just extraordinary. I can't speak more of the service that you guys provide. So, hopefully we get a few more listeners over there in the years to come. But thank you very much for giving us your time and coming on the podcast, and hopefully helping a lot of our listeners break down some of those barriers and in getting to the US or somewhere around the world to hunt in the future.
For sure. Come on over.
I will just ask, Austin, hopefully, this conversation has got a few Australian hunters keen, some non-residents coming your way. Where can our listeners, I guess, find out more about Huntin Fool or get in touch with yourself or the team?
Yeah, the easiest, especially with our time difference, is just go on our website. You can submit a contact us request. That'll come right to us. We'll push that out to one of our advisors to get in touch with you. But our website, huntinfool.com, pretty much has everything on there. So you can find us on YouTube, of course. You can learn more about the advisors. We put a lot of our personal hunts on there, or hunts with our friends and family, so that you can get to know the advisors and see if we're full of it or not. But everything's on our website, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff.
Beauty. Are you on social media as well, Austin? If anyone wants to follow you up for Dale sheep hunt, not potentially to go, but just to see what you've been up to. It sounds like you got a busy coming fall season.
It is busy. Yeah. Well, I should stay married, but it will be busy for sure. So we'll try to take the kids out on as many of those as I can. But my Instagram is AAA Outdoors. So AAA Outdoors is where I post most of my stuff, videos and insights. But obviously I push a lot of stuff on the Huntin Fool channels as well. And my daughter's elk hunt from Colorado last year, we did film that hunt. It'll be coming out on our YouTube very soon. So that should be a fun one.
Awesome. That's cool to see. Thank you very much for your time, Austin. We appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you, guys.
There's a reason they say, get serious, get Hoyt. Ayden and I have always shot Hoyts, and that's because we're rough on gear. Our bows are constantly getting knocked and thrown around, but we know they will stand up to the test when the time comes. Hoyt has created the lightest, best performing carbon bows on the market. While some people change their bows like the season, I've had my old girl since 2019 and she's still performing flawlessly. If you're in the market for a new bow, get serious, get Hoyt. Well, that wraps up another awesome podcast. It was absolutely amazing having Austin on. He's a wealth of knowledge. As you can tell, he's had a lot of experience hunting, and if someone gets him as your hunting consultant, you'll be a very lucky guy or girl, because he'll certainly help you out in the future. But what we're going to do now is jump into our FAQ segment. So if you have a question you'd like answered on the podcast, please email us at info@twinelements.com.au with the subject line FAQ, or send a message to us on our socials at Twin Elements, Ayden Doumtsis Outdoors, or James Doumtsis Outdoors on Instagram, and we'll get that answered on our socials, but also here featured here on the podcast. So this week's question is, what gear should I invest in for my first elk hunt? So what we've done here is I've answered it in a way that's sort of above and beyond what I would say your normal sort of hunting would be here in Australia, as most of our listeners are Australian based. So this is sort of stuff that next level up, where you're going to be maybe doing a backpack hunt or sort of a bit more severe weather conditions. So the first thing on the list I've actually got is making sure you've got a Garmin InReach. So that's firstly for the safety features, having the SOS, but often you're also sort of alone in the wilderness, and being able to connect with your loved ones and friends back home is really important. So having that text function, I've found, especially, when you're out there, sometimes it's just nice to text the loved ones and, feel a bit more at home and connected. So it's a great little feature to have. It also has the weather conditions, which becomes really important when you don't have service, as you often don't in these hunts. And so it's great to be able to check the weather and just keep up to date there in case conditions are going to get really, really bad for the next couple of days. And then, it might be worth you potentially backing out if it's just going to be absolutely sleeting snow, for example. So yeah, definitely Garmin InReach. An Onyx subscription. So Onyx, don't have it here in Australia, but really, really helpful just for knowing where you are in the US, knowing unit areas, knowing topography, all that type of thing. And really crucial part for just building out your hunt strategies and whatnot, marking where elk are and really, helping out in stalks and everything like that. Can't speak more highly of Onyx, and yeah, use it like the Bible over there when we're in the US. So definitely another one. Bear spray. So depending on where you hunt for your elk, we definitely use bear spray and have bear spray on us. Wouldn't go into the woods without it in Montana. Even last trip where they said they'd never seen a bear before, a grizzly that is. We carried bear spray, and it was probably lucky we did, because right where our carcass was, they ended up seeing a grizzly for the first time in like 50 years, and it was only like 3 miles over the ridge in the next basin. So a bit scary to think about, but also having that bear spray is just, peace of mind. The next is a sleep system. So, tent, mattress or pad, and then sleeping bag and pillow. Not going to go into huge specifics on the next fair few items, just because Ayden and I will break down like a full backpacking gear list in the next couple of podcasts before we head to the US in September. So these are more just listing it for you guys. Trekking poles, some form of water purification. So we use a SteriPen, but some people go for tablets. Some people use filters, a jet boil or some sort of cooking system, base layers, which we, most of the time don't really need to wear here in Australia. You may wear them in New Zealand, a good puffy jacket or down jacket, gloves, waterproof gear. So a lot of people probably don't even have that next level of waterproof gear. A lot of, companies have, I guess, water resistant gear, but having like 100% waterproof gear is just a matter of safety out there. And then the last item I had was a good spotting scope. So hunting elk, normally fairly vast country, and especially if you're going into one of these wilderness areas, I think it is worth the extra weight and carrying a spotting scope. Just enables you to have that extra vision, but especially if you're sort of targeting that next sort of size or next level of trophy, it can just save the legs in terms of, you can probably see elk from 5 miles away. But being able to identify that that's the bull that you want to chase just saves you going there to go and check it out. And that wraps up this episode. So we're just going to jump into some housekeeping as usual. Once again, just to support you guys that are supporting us by listening to the podcast, we've created a unique code to buy our prints online that will get you 10% off. So we've got 40 prints there. As a lot of you may have heard, interestingly enough, we've only just used this discount code, and we've already had a fair few people jump on and order prints, which is great. So thank you guys for supporting us. And once again, just jump on there, check out the prints, and I'm sure there's going to be one that you like. We've got US stuff, sort of Northern Territory water buffalo stuff, some beautiful scenery and wildlife, and all the deer species there as well. So make sure to check that out. Well, we have been a little bit quiet on the YouTube channel since releasing Fallow Frenzy earlier in the year, and then we had the 20k YouTube giveaway. But we are pleased to announce that in July, we will have our Northern Territory adventure, where we'll be having a couple of water buffalo films, a couple of boar films, and a couple of bantang films from Dingo Creek up there, Outfitters with Pato. It was an absolutely awesome time. We got in amongst some incredible critters and got some absolutely incredible footage as well. So we can't wait to share that with you guys. And as usual, when it starts up, it will be dropping every Wednesday from 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Times on our YouTube channel. So make sure to check that out. If you aren't subscribed already, please make sure to do. And if you love the films, make sure to tell your friends about them so they can go and check them out as well. So make sure to check out the YouTube channel in the next coming weeks. Another one for the calendar is Venture Hunting and Outdoors are having their 1 year anniversary. So Ayden and I will be there to celebrate with you guys on the 9th and 10th of August. So that's going to be in their Springwood store, their mega store in Brisbane. So they're going to be having their grand 1 year opening. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of prizes and giveaways, I'm sure. The whole team's going to be there. So make sure if you're in that area, or even if you're abroad, come down, make a weekend of it, and come and say hello. So that is the 9th and 10th of August. We'll see you all there. Lastly, thank you once again for all the love and support that you guys have been showing us through the podcast and on across all our social media platforms and channels. Like I said, Ayden and I are putting a lot into it, whether it be the website, our YouTube, or this podcast. The upkeep and inputs from us are growing immensely, but the love that you guys are giving us is also growing. So we really appreciate that. If you guys could refer someone, if they think that could benefit from the information in this podcast, then please let them know. And the more listeners that we get and the more subscribers, it means that the more we can do this full time. So please make sure to refer your friends and family, get everyone on board. And once again, thank you so much from Ayden and I for supporting the platform and channel. We really do appreciate it. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Twin Elements podcast.